Welcome home, good hunters. Today we have got the 4 main dudes from the board game, including the Moonlight Greatsword Hunter, the Sword Cleaver Hunter, the face of Bloodborne. We also have the Axe Hunter, and lastly we have the Threaded Cane Hunter with a big old cannon in the left hand. These are the 4 playable characters from the board game, so without further ado, let's paint them up for the penultimate Bloodborne Sunday.
A corpse should be left well alone.
Now, I am voiceovering the first 5 minutes of this episode because in a wonderful turn of events, my microphone file corrupted shortly after recording, so I'm just laying down this voice in post. So let's begin with the Sword Cleaver Hunter and start off by Zenithal highlighting the little chap. So just going to grab the airbrush and pop in some thinner with some white ink and begin highlighting all 4 models from the top down. So I'm thinking the main colour of the leather on this one will be a grey, so I'll start off by basing the model with some Basilicanum grey contrast paint, and I'll apply that to the jacket, the hat and the trousers. And already the contrast works so well with the Zenithal highlight underneath, it really is just magic stuff, this contrast paint. Whilst the contrast paint dries, we can move on to doing the sword cleaver, and I'll just base it with some lead belcher. Don't worry too much about getting paint onto the wraps on the weapon because we'll be painting over those later, just get a good basing of this metallic paint on it. And add a little wash of Nuln Oil over it just to bring in some contrast and a bit of gloss to which we can add highlights onto later. And whilst the Nuln dries, we can base the handle, and I'm going to base it with some Xandri dust. And I'll just quickly go over and base any of the metallic armour parts of the model and the pistol with some more lead belcher followed by some more Nuln Oil. Now the contrast on the jacket is dry, I'm going to use some glazes of contrast paints to add a bit of colour because I want these parts of the leather to have a sort of brownish tint to it and not just be fully grey. So what I'm going to do is grab some snakebite leather contrast and some contrast medium, mix them together to make a glaze consistency, and this will sort of become my wash to go over the greys to create the brown tones. So I'll start off by tinting the trousers with the glaze, keep it nice and subtle and slowly start building up some layers and then add some streaks of this colour to the jacket. Not a lot, but just enough to start building up some differentiation on it and add a bit of character and texture to it. Now it's pretty cool, it's pretty subtle, but it certainly does make the trousers stand out from the jacket and add some depth to them. And now I'll just start building up some glazes over it to generate some more colour on the boots and around the trousers, just to sort of boost that contrast and saturation a bit more. So far, so good with it. Now before I leave this to dry for a sec, I'm going to go over the handle wraps on the cleaver with some Agrax Earthshade in order to add some aging and weathering to them. Now I can safely pass me back to me since my microphone starts working from here. Oh, right. Everything has now dried and taken shape. Looking pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding a bit of shading around on some of the clothing. I'm going to use a glaze of Black Legion contrast, and I'm just going to be targeting all the areas that kind of I think would generate the most shadow, all the sort of little tucked away areas, and I can just start building upon it to generate stronger shadows. But you can always add, it's harder to take away, so keep it nice and thin. So there we are with our black wash applied. The thin down contrast, that is. So now I'm going to start looking into adding some highlights. And I'm going to start off, we're going to work in some Ishin Grey and some Administratum Grey. So starting off with the Eshin Grey, I'm just going to start applying it and edge highlighting and mixing around areas that I think will have the brightest areas. Starting with the Eshin will allow us to sort of build up into the next tone, which will be the Administratum. So we can have a bit of blend from darkest to lightest. Cool, and now I'm going to move up to our Administratum Grey and start enhancing those highlights that we've applied. Beautiful. And now I'm going to move up finally to the last one, which will be the Corax White. Right, so there's our highlighted hunter. Looking pretty jazzy. What we need to do is now do some highlights on the brown leathers, and I'll do that with a mix of Mournfang Brown, and then I'll move up into some Xandri Dust. So same again, just picking out parts that I think would be brightest, sort of the uppermost facing parts where the light source will be affecting the most. And the good thing with the zenithal highlight is when you're using contrast, it will still kind of be relatively visible, so you can sort of use that to use as a guide and map out where you want to lay some brighter tones. Lovely, and same again just with the Xandri Dust. Cool, I like how that's looking so far. Next up will be to do some highlights and shading on the saw cleaver. Just going to go back to my Black Legion wash, just darken up this edge of the cleaver. Now I'm just going to use some Ironbreaker, and I'm going to use that to dab on some highlights to the metallics that we've got. So the sort of knee, the sort of shin pads here, top of the gun, the top part of the saw cleaver, the arm pads and the buckles as well. Now we just need to do some highlights to the wraps, and I'll do that with some Ushbati bone. So last thing to do for painting will be just to do the pistol, and I'm going to do the pistol. I kind of want to make it rusty, kind of want to make it look a bit old. I might try a mix of Balthazar Gold and maybe highlight with some Fulgurite Copper. So with the Balthazar Gold, we're just getting the sort of shaft of the pistol. Shaft the right word? Neck? Front? Tube? I don't know. And now we're just going to take some of our Fulgurite Copper, and I'm just going to highlight the tip here. Cool. And I think to finish off that little part, I'm just going to give it a bit of Nuln Oil to kind of bring down that tone a little bit. Gravy. So now, to finish off this fella, I'm going to grab my favourite coagulated blood, and I'm just going to use that to bloody up the saw cleaver, because you don't want a clean saw cleaver, do you? No, you want a bloody saw cleaver. Just using a fraying brush, just going to build up some blood at the bottom here. A little speckling of it to the wraps as well. There we are, one bloodied saw cleaver. Very nice. And that means that that hunter is done. Pretty pleased with how that one's come out. Well, that's that. Wouldn't be a video without me dropping a model. There it is. So then we're going to move on nicely to our threaded cane hunter. Going to use the same techniques that we did with the leather on this one. I'm going to get that painted up using the exact same way, and then we'll move on and do some of the other bits that are quite different. So we'll check back once that has been done. Here we are with the update so far. So with some gold, I'm using Retributor armor. I'm gonna get in the little decals down here. So we have the little neckerchief thing to do. So I'm gonna base the neckerchief with some Moorcast bone. I'm gonna base the face with some Cadian flesh tone, highlight it with some Kislev flesh. Now we're just going to brighten it up with the Kislev flesh. Now what I'm going to do is grab a little bit of coagulated blood. I'm just going to dab it on the neckerchief here. Now for the hair, I think I'm going to go with a sort of blondish kind of tone. So I'm going to base it with the Moorcast bone, sort of get that kind of Lady Maria vibe. Now I can highlight the hair. I'm going to mix some Ushbati bone and Corax white together. Threaded cane hunter. Done and done. Next up, and we're going to do this a little bit differently, we have the axe hunter. So I'm going to base the white cloak with the darker shade of grey, and we can start bringing the lighter tones up. So with the base of Mechanica Standard Grey, just going to coat pretty much the entire piece with this darker grey. While that paint settles a bit, I'm gonna go back to our snakebite leather contrast, and I'll use that to paint in the boots and the axe handle. Now there are wraps to paint in, but I think if I just get a good coat of snakebite leather, I can at least coat the whole handle, and then I can paint over the wraps with some lighter colours afterwards. The inner robe here and the hat is pretty much a black, so I'm going to go over it with some Black Legion contrast. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to map out the brighter points on the cloak. So grabbing some white, I'm going to be popping these on a wide application just because they are going to be white cloaks, so the white will be the main colour, and we'll just be using the darker greys to blend into as shadow. Like so. There we are with our whites mapped out. Now load in the Administratum grey. Cool, so that's the cloak highlighted. So what I'm going to do next is just paint in the wraps on the axe handle. I'm going to do that with the Xandri dust. And also the ropes at the top of the axe. Paint them in with some Xandri dust. And I'm just going to apply a wash of Seraphim Sepia over the handle and the wraps. Beef up that sort of woody contrast a bit. So now we'll just let that dry for a bit. Now that's all dried, so we're going to do the axe head. And same as the others, we'll base it with some lead belcher. And the little raised bit on it, I'm going to do with some gold. This sort of like little strap here. And then I'll give that a little wash of Nuln Oil. So now I'm just going to get some lead belcher on the little lantern that's on his side. I'm going to brighten up the axe and brighten up with a bit of Ironbreaker. And then I'll just add some edge highlighting on with a bit of Runefang Steel. Cool. Now we're going to build up some blood. I think it will be quite nice because it's a quite a bright model. I think we could get some of our flicky blood splatters on it, which could look quite nice, I reckon. There we are. 3 out of 4 hunters done. That is the Axe Hunter complete. So last up we have the Moonlight Greatsword, the forever recurring weapon from the Fromsoftware franchise. And here we have it on one of our hunters. Again, like the Axe Hunter, it's a white-based outfit, which will be really nice because we can put some cool turquoise, greeny, bluey kind of glows, which I think will look quite cool. I'm gonna base our hunter with some Mechanicus Standard Grey, to which we can start adding highlights to. Oopsie. That is 2 out of 4 dropped. That's a pretty good return rate for me, to be honest. So on to... Crikey, I'm throwing everything everywhere. I'm going to build up our tones and blend them together, and I'm probably just going to hit a time lapse because you've seen me do this already. You don't need me to talk through it again, do you? Right, so quick catch up from the time lapse. What I've done is, for the outfit, I've done the exact same thing what we did with the Axe Hunter, starting off with the Mechanica Standard Grey, moving up into the Corax White for the highlights, using the Administratum grey to start blending between to generate the sort of highlights following the zenithal highlight underneath. Then we did the same thing with the skin as we did with the Axe Hunter. We started off with Cajun flesh tone, highlighted with some Kislev flesh, and then mixed in some white with Kislev flesh for extra highlighting, and a bit of snakebite leather on the boots. And that's pretty much everything that I've just done there, and that leaves us now to finish off with the actual sword. It's kind of turquoisey, kind of bluey, kind of greeny, tealy kind of colour. So I think if I mix together this bright blue and bright green contrast, Talisar blue, Karandras green and blue together create turquoise. We get some contrast medium. Let's see what colour this comes out as, shall we? Well, that comes out as turquoise, would you believe it? You mix together blue with green, you make turquoise. Who'd have thunk it? Stay tuned next week for some more awesome colour theory, where I'll mix together red and yellow and we'll find out what colour we get next. Cool. I think that's the exact colour that I wanted, which is really nice. Really nice when that happens. Is I'll thin this down, right down into a glazy wash, and I'll start giving a bit of glow. Now I'm going to detail in these like little raised patterns with some white. There we are, our Moonlight Greatsword, which means we can wrap up all 4 of these hunters. How exciting is that? Which also means there's only 1 left of these Bloodborne Sundays, as there is only 1 model left to do from the main core set of the Bloodborne board game. Better get your planners ready, because, you know, what are we going to do with our Sundays? But for now, this is the penultimate episode of Bloodborne Sundays here on this channel. Let's get these 4 suckers lined up together in order. Here we have the first one, the Sword Cleaver Hunter, the Threaded Cane Hunter with the fat old hand cannon, the Axe Hunter with a big gory bloodied axe, the only one I decided to do blood splatter on, the Moonlight Greatsword Wielder Hunter. Bosh. Jobbed everybody. Way to go. You were great out there. And with that brings a close to another episode of Bloodborne Sundays. Thank you so much once again for watching, for liking, for subscribing, for commenting, for engaging on all these videos. It truly means a lot to me that you guys continue to watch and enjoy these videos that I put out. I'm going to leave you to your Sundays. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you next week for the final episode of Bloodborne Sundays. For now, that is. Peace out, gang. Thank you very much once again, everyone, for joining me for this episode of Bloodborne Models. If you did enjoy today's episode, please don't forget to leave it a like, drop a comment, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And I will see you next Sunday for more Bloodborne Models. But until then, peace out, gang, and don't you dare go hollow.